You're now listening to the Built to Last podcast, a show for human performance professionals from a biblical worldview. This is performance coaching with eternal purpose.
Welcome back to another episode of the Built to Last podcast. I'm your host, Justin Bentavania, and today I am joined with a dear friend of mine, an incredible coach. His name is Jordan Barr, and he is the Assistant Director of Sports Performance at Duke University. Today, guys, we're going to be diving into the topic of training the rotational athlete. But first, before we get into that and X's and O's, I want you guys to hear more about Jordan's progression in the career, because it's a pretty crazy journey. And I think there's a lot that we can all take from it. And so, Jordan, just to kick this thing off, how'd you get into the field of strength and conditioning?
Yes, sir. But yeah, so I got into it. I think you remember, like, when we were in college, our strength coach at University of Hartford was Coach Ryan Carr. And he was just somebody I kind of looked up to and admired. He was our goalkeeper coach. He was also a strength coach who was somebody who motivated me really well. And he would also let me know in certain moments that I did a good job. And obviously, you as an athlete, when you do a good job and you get notified and someone praises you for doing that, man, you just feel phenomenal. Like, man, I did a great job. They noticed it, because there's so many times that you can think you're doing something well, but you don't get noticed, or nobody says anything. Nobody says if you're doing it well or doing it bad or doing it incorrectly. You just feel like you just want feedback. And I know that the best athletes definitely want feedback. So I got that from him. And so he pointed me in the direction of what it was like to be a strength coach. He kind of told me to go through the majors, the steps taken, and how to get through and navigate the certifications, etc. So long story short, majored in health sciences at Hartford with nutrition classes. I ended up actually getting a concentration in Spanish language, which is not relevant, just maybe good at speaking Spanish.
Let's do the rest of the podcast in Spanish, man. We're going
to vamos, let's go. So that kind of got me pointing in the right direction. Graduated in my exercise science, and then as obviously my Larissa, my wife, and I, we got engaged in college. We got married essentially immediately after we graduated, and we both knew we just had to start working. It's just life. So we started life right away. I took the first job. I applied to everything, like anything from an assistant strength and conditioning coach job to personal trainer jobs in corporate gyms. So I actually ended up taking a corporate personal training job at a big gym called Best Fitness in Chelmsford, Mass, which is honestly, I think that area in that Gen Pop realm is where I really learned to communicate and how to coach different ranges of people. Because I had anybody from a 12-year-old because their parents wanted to get them out of the house to an 85-year-old person that had a double hip replacement. And it's, you don't get necessarily training for all that. Like in college, you learn basic functional anatomy, but you do all the research yourself, and you figure out how to tell somebody to pick something up, put it down while doing it really well. I was really successful in the personal training industry. Ended up continuing to try to shorten this, but trying to essentially, my wife's company moved down to North Carolina. I thought it'd be easier for me to find a good job in the strength industry than would be for her to follow her opportunities. So we moved down. Wasn't that case. It took me a while to find one. Ended up working in the private sector at a D1 Sports in Raleigh. Then kind of getting to where I am now, my boss or director of D1 Sports there was neighbors with a former assistant strength coach for Duke football. I made that connection. I went and shadowed at Duke football a day, essentially from 6 a.m. till 3 p.m. Just everything from field work to weight room, essentially. I loved it. Later that summer, they said there was a position open in their internship. Mind you, this is before that this school or a lot of schools were doing any paid internships. They weren't paying for anything. So this is literally hey, come help out if you want, just to get experience. So you're getting paid in protein shakes and protein bars and the occasional hand-me-down t-shirt. So again, continuing to shorten the story, I did that for 2 years, working, essentially interning, working for free full time at Duke.
And I know you're trying to get through it quick and respect
Yeah.
time, but that's I want to highlight that you were
Yeah.
interning for 2 years at Duke.
Yeah. So the first year was a full, like an actual internship. I shadowed, I helped out the actual assistant coaches and strength coaches, had teams, and I quickly got to the point where I had small groups to be able to work with and individual athletes to work with myself. But obviously I didn't have responsibility with teams. I was an intern. I took groups of athletes. I helped with warm-ups. I cleaned. You push stuff away. You wipe stuff down all the time. You're sorting equipment, all that. Just like the standard internship, Again, I want to also praise Duke. Like it wasn't a bad internship. Like it wasn't something where they make you like scrub the floors. It's like you do your work. You put in the time. You do your work. And I like to say that I did a good enough job where they wanted to keep me there. The second year, it wasn't an internship, but just because the situation myself and my wife are in, she had such a good job that I wasn't going to be taking a job anywhere else. Like we're not moving because of the strength conditioning job. It's based on the introductory, beginning salaries of the assistant strength coach. So I literally continued to work at D1 doing classes and personal training for another year, working at Duke for free. I actually ended up taking on, which is a cool thing. I ended up being able to start a program, the first ever program, a sport team there, help out the first five athletes there, got to take them through that whole thing. And then the year after that is when essentially I kind of told them, I was like, I can't do this really forever. And then, again, just blessed to have the opportunity for them to find some money for me. I was paid part-time. And then I worked my way into being able to teach classes for the recreational side and the academics. So I taught essentially 2 PE classes, introduction to weightlifting at Duke, which if you ever get an opportunity to teach in the academic side, whatever it is, PE classes, take it, because academics pays pretty well, even for, adjunct professors. I wasn't a professor. I was an instructor. Big difference. I love the emails first week, and they're like, "Hey, professor." I'm like, "Thanks, but I'm just an instructor. Just call me Jordan." I don't even care about Mr. Barr. Again, still I tell everybody, call me J Bar. Just by the way, everybody calls me J Bar. So worked part-time and taught classes. Did essentially made enough to like really not do a ton at D1, had a couple clients. And then the following year, bump up your hourly rate a little bit. So, and then you continue to teach classes. And then I was brought in, I don't even remember what year it was. I want to say it was 2018, the summer of 2018, when I was brought on full time. So I started interning there at 2015, interned or worked as a volunteer coach in 2016, worked part-time 2017, worked part-time 2018, hired full-time. Full-time? Either hired full-time in 2019 or 2020. Honestly, I forget if it was part-time 2 or 3 years. But yeah, it's such a good experience, and obviously that comes with a lot of, I'm not gonna say, obviously I could probably go into a whole episode of how to manage the life of stress between you and your spouse, between like just having the lifestyle of a strength coach, because it was a strain, honestly. I went through times of essentially being borderline depressed at times, and us getting in arguments about incomes and what am I going to do, like where am I end up going to take this, because I'm not necessarily successful at it. It's just like you're here making some money, so it's just a big stressor on marital relationships. So, or even non-marital, it's just a lot to take in as you're trying to make it in the strength industry. And even more so because it wasn't like I was fresh out of school taking it as my first job, which is generally the traditional route. You take it, you go, you graduate. Because I started working right away, I didn't have time or money to do a grad degree or a GA position. Like I was married and had to support a family. So I went in and did all the work, and just kind of worked my way up to the position where got on full time, took over, essentially kept adding almost one team a year up until a point where now I've earned the position of an assistant director. I'm in charge of, I started the social media and I control the social media for Duke University Sports Performance. I have right now 3 teams or 4 teams, and it's been an amazing experience, and I thank God for just the opportunity to be where I am.
You're humble, man. You're humble. It's I don't think it just happens, right? They're not just giving those positions out, especially at a place like Duke where people are fighting tooth and nail, I'm sure, to get one of those. And so the fact that you were just so persistent and just steadfast in your focus day after day for years until you saw that thing come to fruition. And we can do, like, we can do a whole podcast on that, just diving into that journey. But dude, thanks for sharing it, man. I think that's
for sure.
a lot of people, especially the young guys and young girls in the profession that are coming up in it. It's like you don't just get that full-time job right off the bat. There's a lot of work in.
I'd honestly say my experience as a collegiate athlete or premier athlete going through high school and college and even trying to be successful afterwards in professional level definitely prepared me for that, because I didn't make it right away. And even in college, I was prospected to do really well in college. I had injury setback, so I trained and practiced a ton a lot of times without even seeing the field, so it's that grind. Like what is that motivator for you? And it's just like, I could get this opportunity next. Like it might be tomorrow whether I get into play. Like then I might get in the next game, somebody else could get injured, I might be in the next play, just always being ready and just having that mentality of just be ready for it and always do the best you can. Because like, again, I'm going back to Coach Carr, the people notice your hard work, whether you think they do or not. Most of the time people notice your hard work. Like I even remember, I think we were playing, I feel like it was BC at one year, and just tell you the type of guy he is. Like I remember after one of there was a timeout or an injury, something like that there happened, and there was like cups lying around on the sidelines by our bench, and I just walked over and picked up the cups and took them all there and threw them out. And he's kind of staring there on the side. He just kind of looks over and says, "Hey, Jordan, I see what you're doing." And like just those little things
That's awesome.
that you could do for the people under your care just absolutely could change a mindset or change a motivation for such a long time, like a semester, a year, just because that somebody's there, like whether they can physically or verbally tell you all the time or not, they're noticing what you do.
Dude, that's so powerful, man. The Bible talks about it, right? Life and death are in the power of the tongue, right? We can use our words to encourage or tear down. And, the power of the coach to do that is powerful.
Yes.
Powerful.
Yep.
So, but dude, talking about coaching, right? So I'm just going to let the people that are listening know. On my bachelor party, we went to the driving and you tore it up, man. You're an incredible golfer. And I know you're working with the golf team as well at Duke. And one of the things that I wanted to dive into that I feel like we don't talk about enough is the rotational piece, right? Everything I feel like is sagittal plane, right? And so I would love to hear maybe some of your biggest training considerations in training a rotational athlete.
So I think one of the misconceptions, let's say, because it's very per sport. So with golf is that you have to train golfers carefully. Good movement is good movement. Like, working with softball teams and baseball athletes. Like if you move well, you're going to be fast, and good mobility most of the time comes from just good, proper strength training. If you're doing things the right way, you're moving well, you're programming things well, and you're doing things consistently well, most of the time you're not going to cause any movement inefficiency. So a lot of times, like, unless there's something that they're trying to correct in a form, you're like, yes, obviously you can add mobility because over time things start to work in, but you don't have to, like, as a golfer, do this, like, I'm going to do a day of yoga and stretching. Like, if you get to that's like the old school mindset of these guys that have to kind of take it easy. It's a lot of stretching. It's like, if you look at the game now, where the game is essentially is how far can you hit the ball? Because there's a lot of statistics on, the closer you are to the green, if you're getting kind of nerdy in golf, the closer you are to the green, the lower your score is going to be. That's kind of summed it up. So how well can you hit the ball? How hard can you hit it? How far can you hit it? How well can you hit it? So a lot of things go into consideration. But like when I train athletes, rotational athletes, or again throwing, hitting, swinging a club, swinging a bat, it's how good can I get them at their sport? And thinking about rotation, what are things that tend to hinder rotation, and what time of the year is that happening? So thinking about what hinders rotation, and this is where a really good idea of understanding of functional anatomy comes in, is what are the things that do you need to rotate powerfully? You need a really good, strong, gritty core that can really brace and decelerate. That core also doesn't just decelerate, but it also transmits the force from obviously from the ground, from your feet to your legs, to your hips, through your core, up into your torso, and through your arms into whatever you're doing, whatever implement you're using. So how good can you separate your hips and shoulders? So I train really good thoracic rotation, something that is good. Some people, again, don't need it. They have to work a little more on stability and control and less actual mobility. So thoracic rotation, how well can they brace and connect that thoracic rotation to their hips? Can they keep a good neutral spine while doing that? How well do the hips move in the socket? Like, are they stable? Good internal, external rotation. And then kind of the same thing as the core. You need the powerhouse of the movement to be big, strong legs, and obviously healthy ankles and feet that are going to be able to create and absorb force as you're producing force and using the ground to produce force.
So real quick, when you say big, strong legs, right? I know you mentioned in the beginning not being too dainty when training your golfers. I mean, are you squatting them? How are you training them for lower body strength?
Lower body strength, I mean, just like you would train an athlete. Like we do squats, occasionally we'll do deadlifts depending on what type of hinge it is. A lot of I call Bulgarians or RFE split squats in general. A lot of transverse movements, a lot of multiplanar movements. If you're trying to throw, hit something, swing something hard, you have to have good frontal plane strength, right? Really good ground-based rotational power. So how well do you use the ground? Like, can you throw something and swing something effectively, use the ground effectively? And not just how hard can you do it, but how well can you do it, right? So can they do something well? Obviously, then simplifying it, good hip mobility, good T-spine rotation, thoracic spine rotation, a healthy cervical spine, obviously that kind of ties into it. Can they get their shoulders, their shoulder blades, their scaps, and their arms to work in good rhythm with each other, which ties really well into thoracic mobility. And then this is more of like the baseball, softball throwing mechanics, even hitting mechanics, is a good end range cuff control. And then in general, eccentric strength, because everything that you do after you produce power, you have to decelerate power. You have to decelerate all that speed in some way. So I think your body can only produce as much force as it's going to be able to absorb. So I mean, that's where we do a lot of phases with eccentrics in it. We do isometrics. I mean, not going to go full like triphasic, but I mean, like we're doing good eccentric strength, being able to control the movements, control it down, control it up. Can you jump still? Can you land really well without your hips or knees collapsing? Can you keep good posture as you jump and land? And obviously that's when you add rotation. So something for me, just personally, when they get into the seasons, I won't do a lot of lat dominant bracing. So like I'll do more front rack. I'll stay a little bit away from like more back squat and bench press movements when they get in season, because those movements, obviously you will need good external rotation and you need good control. And if you're doing a lot of bench press, deadlift, obviously depending on the individual, but those generally, if you're doing something like that, they're going to cause you to really lock your lats down, lock your shoulder blades down, can kind of get away from that rhythm, because it'll, if you're trying to rotate a lot, lats that are a little overactive can hinder that rotation. And then when you get into the season again, I'll stay away from things loaded on the back just because, in my personal opinion, I don't think that heavy axial load and rotation would go really well together.
I'm telling you, man, even like when I was in the collegiate setting, like I really had shifted away from back squat that really has within the last couple of years that I was there. And now even being in a different setting, even here as well, I'm pushing front squat first and seeing if somebody will buy into it before I just go and prescribe a back squat. It's just the risk reward. It's like we're going to get a good CNS benefit regardless, whether it's on the shoulders or whether it's on the back.
Yeah. And then, like you just talked about, even the CNS, like we've got force plates that will do assessments on occasion with athletes. And now we need to help, I'll say, educate a lot of more so on the sport coach side.
Yep.
That a high squat or high deadlift number does not mean that person is very athletic. So the force plates can kind of give us an idea of how powerful someone is, because power and strength are not equal. Like someone who produces a lot of force because of the load is not someone who's going to be fast and explosive.
Dude, that's good, man. That's good. What else you got? Rotational athletes. Before we move on to some other questions I have, what other things do you have on that?
Rotational athletes, again, I love to utilize chops a ton, chops and lifts. Like the way I progress chops and lifts, I'll do from a tall kneeling position, then I'll do a half kneeling position, from a half kneeling position to a full standing bilateral position, then a standing split squat position. And then obviously, again, like you talked about, you can get creative from there. Things that can kind of, I don't want to get sport specific in the movement because I want to train the qualities of an athlete. I don't necessarily want to train the actual sports skill that they have, if that makes sense. So like I want to train good overhead reach, I want to train good scapular stability, I want to train good thoracic rotation, hip internal and external rotation, because a lot of times like most throwing athletes aren't that great at hip internal rotation. So like making sure you're getting that in your programs, and then just making sure that you're training the qualities of what they need to do something well, and then let the sport coaches figure out how to use the qualities that they have to do something skill specific. So I think that's also a point where sometimes strength coaches and sport coaches get a little too mixed up. It's like, don't do, swing something, always swing something super. Like it doesn't have to be. If they have the qualities of rotation, they're going to be able to do that as a skill at, on the range or in the cages or throwing, playing long toss, whatever it is, or pitching. Like they're going to be able to do that. So give them the qualities and give them the ability to do that really well, repeatedly and efficiently. And then let them play well, let them play their sport outside the weight room.
That's good, man. That's phenomenal. I think what I hear you saying is it's like if you make them a more robust athlete, the coaches can almost do more with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. That's good, man. I just want I love asking you this as a friend as well as a a colleague in the profession.
Yeah.
What has God been teaching you recently?
Man, I mean, we talked a little bit the other day, but I mean, it's not right now hasn't been the easiest for me in the past few days. I won't get into it, but probably get a little emotional about this, but I think it even goes back to the question you were going to ask, is like how like building good relationships with your athletes. It kind of goes into that, plus the things going on with, like, I have a 20-month-old Britain. Just really, really appreciating the moments that you're in right now. Every practice that you're at, every weightlifting session, every conditioning session that you're in, really appreciating the people that are there and letting them know that you love them. Because that'll have such an impact on their lives. And actually, one of the books that I really love is Quiet Strength by Tony Dungy. And there's a quote that I love. I can't really repeat verbatim, but essentially something I like to tell my athletes every year before we get going in the fall is like, I care so much more about you as a person. You as a person, so much more about how much you play, how many points you score, how much weight you lift, or like whatever. Like, I love you as a person. I'll tell them, like, I love you as a person. Nothing will change that. I don't care if you get injured tomorrow, you never play again. Like, I'm going to treat you the same. I'm going to love you and support you as a person. because I don't see you as a number. Like, I don't see you as a piece on a chessboard that's trying to win a championship, because you may never win one. But like, I genuinely want them to know that I love them. It's the same thing. Like, just in that, I mean, if you can appreciate the moment because you love something so much that you have to sit into it because you don't know what's going to happen the next day. And I think some people they miss out too much on what's happening in the moment because they're trying to do the next thing. I feel like I've probably been guilty of that, of like missing something or not. Maybe I can go like do something else for a little bit and maybe go a little 15 minutes late to this, like whatever it is. But I know everybody's got different situations, but it's definitely a love, like just be in the moment. Appreciate where you are at that time. Actually, my mom gave me a great quote about my son, Britton, is he will never be this young ever again at this moment. Because every second from now on, he's getting older. So even in the hard times when he's whining and sobbing, if something's happened, he's teething, he scream because I didn't give him whatever snack that I gave, whatever. It's just, he's never going to be that small again. I think that can go well with you and athletes as well, whoever you're with. It's like, you are never going to get this moment back. So make sure that you pour everything into these athletes in this moment, because you can't get it back. And that's how you're going to build the lasting relationships, if you realize, even get the lasting results that you want to get, that will last for years, is going to be investing everything you can into the individuals in front of you, and not, and that's going to carry over into the results you want for the future. Because that's probably the biggest things God's working on me right now, is you don't know what's going to happen. So really, really just stay, be where your feet are, stay in the moment. It doesn't mean don't have a plan for the future, but it's just like, we really got to appreciate it, because you could be flying and enjoying everything, and then one day it's just literally pulled out from under you. So I just remember even a couple of weeks ago, or a few days ago, just planning things for the future. Like, man, this is going to be great. I can't wait for this. This is going to be such a great time. And then all of a sudden, boom, gone. It's like, it's your world, that everything, your whole thought process about how you did things, is just like, it's turned on its head. But yeah.
No, that's an incredible reminder for me as well. Just because I think we're all guilty of it. You go to work every day, you're in the same office, in the same gym, you're seeing a lot of times the same people, and you can just fall into the routine of it. And it's like you said, you never know when it's going to be your last day. And being where your feet are is so important. It's like, you can make the most of every day.
Yeah.
No, that's an awesome reminder for me as well. So
yeah. Let me just, because I actually just found, scrolling through this, that quote from Quiet Strength, which I've got right here.
Let's go.
It says, what will people remember us for? Are other people's lives better because we lived? Did we make a difference? Did we use the fullest the gifts and abilities God gave us? Did we give our best effort? And did we do it for the right reasons? So God's definition of success is really one of significance. To the significant difference our lives can make in the lives of others. The significance doesn't show up in a win-loss record, long resumes, or trophies gathered, the dust unmantled. It's found in the hearts and lives of those we come across who are in the same, or who are in some way better because of the way we lived. And so that's essentially the quote I was just referring to earlier. Is like, did the effect we have on the athletes affect them as a person in their heart, and not just the scorecard or the record books?
Incredible. Hey, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Coach, is there a best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can look me up on goduke.com, but my Instagram is jbar_411. My email is jtb52@duke.edu. I'm always open to connecting. One of the biggest things I preach is have, just network with whoever you can, find information. I'm good. Like, just want to have a call, want to have an email, switch back and forth. That's okay. I love doing that.
Awesome. Well, let me pray us out.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for this conversation with Jordan. Lord, we just thank you for his knowledge and expertise and what he was willing to share with us today, Lord. It definitely made me better, Lord. And we just thank you for his opportunity that he has every day, Lord, to make an impact for your kingdom. I'm thankful that he's focused on things that are not just of the physical, Lord, but that are eternal. And so I just pray that you continue to bless him and use him in his workplace and his family, God, for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.